Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome back. It's another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker. I'm Lisa Gunshore, and as always, I'm your host for the Buddhist Biohacker and for our journey into the mystical and this wild ride we're on in 2020. If you are watching on the live, welcome in, and you can use the live chat box to the right if you want to ask any questions or comments. We absolutely would love that. If you're listening later on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or Google Play, because we are now on Google Play also, you can always use our forum, which is on MeWe, mewe.com, and join the Buddhist Biohacker Forum. We'd love to have you there for continued discussion. And I'm really excited for today. We've started a new program called the Monthly Featured Guests, and we have a handful of really incredible facilitators from all around the world who are coming on each and every month to teach us, to give us the tools for success in the new reality, to help us to heal ourselves, to create awakenings. It's really just incredible. And we have a brand new guide on our website. So if you go to lisamgunshore.com, click on Buddhist Biohacker, and then click on view our schedule, you can actually see what's coming up live. And so you remember the TV guide back in the day, and you'd look to see what was on the channels. I don't even know if we use those anymore because I don't watch television, but we did have those guides. And so now this is your guide to conscious content. So I highly encourage you to look at that. We have full descriptions and information on all of our guests, all of our roundtables, our monthly features, everything, so that you can decide what to join in live and be able to participate with us, because it's way more fun if you're here on the live sharing your comments and asking your questions. So just sharing all of that with you. We have our schedule up right now all the way through September, and believe it or not, we're booking through September and into October already, which is so incredible. So really excited. And I am so happy to welcome our guest, Cairo Rocha. Nice to see you again, Cairo. It's so happy to have you here.
Cecilia, thank you so much for having me again. I'm very happy to be here at this moment with you at this time as well.
Oh, it's just so wonderful. You have such a wonderful energy. And for everyone who's joining for the first time, maybe they haven't listened to the summits, or maybe they haven't been on recently, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, it's a very interesting question. People ask me this all the time. What is it that you do? I have to stop for a moment to think everything, because basically you've been through so much. It's a long journey, and basically I'm always learning. And as I say, my best teachers are my patients, my students. But anyway, to give some pictures, I'm a Chinese, Japanese, and Tibetan medicine therapist. Basically those foundation, those areas that I'm exposed to. It started in Japan about 35 years ago when I went to study acupuncture, but I have no idea what I was going to, because my life changed completely. Because I left Japan. When I left Japan, my life had changed so much that acupuncture was just a small part of everything that I've done. And after Japan, 4 years in Japan, I went to Germany and I stayed 4 more years, traveling to UK, France, and learning as much as I could from their natural traditions and the medicine tradition of the European. And finally, after 8 years abroad, went back to Brazil and ended up teaching acupuncture at the school, and then ended up running the school for 7 years. So I've been all over this area from different aspects. And now I've been in the Bahamas for 23 years. And I divide my time by being in the office, seeing people, seeing patients, but also traveling, teaching seminars, which is kind of challenging now at this moment. But also I'm beginning to offer online consultations, because it's easy for people to reach me and vice versa. So that's where I'm at the moment.
My gosh, you really went everywhere. What made you decide to go to Japan? Like, what made you decide to study acupuncture in Japan? That's a big journey.
At the risk of being repetitive, I think I don't know what, assuming that some people haven't heard, but I never crossed my mind of studying acupuncture. Grew up in Brazil and Brasilia. The only thing I knew is I loved to travel. I used to collect as very, very young. I used to collect travel guides from all over the world and maps. I was fascinated by it. So that led me to study geography and geology, somewhat closer to me. But there was this thing. There's something missing. There is something I couldn't put a finger on, but there's something missing because I couldn't relate to any professions that my friends and family were pursuing. Then I stopped. I decided to, geology was taking me away from people. So I decided to study law. So I joined a law school, graduated law, but it was still something missing. It's not that. Then I didn't know what to do. What should I do? And then one day I saw this ad in the newspaper, Doin Weekend. Doin is a Japanese acupressure,
Okay.
Japanese way. For some mysterious reason, I decided to join in, and that was it. That hit the spot, triggered every neuron I had at the time.
Wow.
And that was it, the concept of energy or some, this is fascinating. And immediately after that, talking about, not coincidences or synchronicities, I met this old gentleman. He was an old acupuncturist. He was about to retire. And he had studied acupuncture in Japan with a samurai, descendant of samurai, of course, after the war, immediately after the war. And then this precise man came to me out of the blue. He said, go to Japan. You need to go to Japan to study acupuncture. I said, well, Japan around the corner. I've been to so many things. I was kind of, joking, but he kept telling me that over and over. One day I found out that the very traditional acupuncture school of Tokyo was opening its doors for the first time to foreigners in their history. I said, but I wasn't quite convinced yet. So I prayed for a sign. I need a sign, and I had a sign. I remember to this day, Lisa, I had this dream, a very dramatic dream, where I was in a room, a very large room, and in front of me, it was this Japanese blue and white, those vases, this porcelain, scattered into pieces, broken into pieces as far as my eyes could see. And behind me was this voice, go and assemble it. That was it. Following morning, bought my ticket. And immediately I went to Japan and my life changed.
Wow. God, that gives me goosebumps everywhere. You can just feel the energy of that. My gosh, that's so amazing.
Yes. And even though you might guess Japan, even though I grew up in Brazil and Japan was totally different, as you might guess, it's totally different language, everything, but I felt totally at home. Totally at home. And the first thing I did before I got engaged into acupuncture and therapies, I went to I joined a homestay program to stay with a family in Hokkaido, northern Japan, work in a strawberry farm. So I needed that kind of thing. I needed that kind of connection. And it was beautiful because I got to learn more about the Japanese way, this idea that they have the very, reserved people, but this is a facade. Once you break the ice, it couldn't be more friendly people and friends that last forever. So by living with this family and working with the strawberry, not working so much because they interrupt every time to give me things to eat. I was the first gaijin, the first foreigner they saw, and I was, very treated so well. So with that knowledge, with the culture and everything, so I got back to Tokyo when I finally started studying acupuncture and everything related therapies.
Oh, wow. Now, I want to get into the nuts and bolts of what your monthly feature is all about. But before we do, you also wrote a book, right?
Yes, the first book was actually, this is my first book. It was the second. My
Okay.
first book was about emotions, my experience with emotions, because of course, living in Japan was a society, totally different society from Brazil, because Brazilians are very much, emotions are the skin level, very expressive. In Japan, they're more reserved. I can understand why, having lived there, because it's a small territory with a dense population. So over the years, centuries, they had to develop a way or interact with one another in a very harmonious way. And it comes back to samurai time, that concept of honor. Also, you own your emotions. The emotions are yours. And it is such a in such a subtle way, they train themselves, they harmonize themselves, almost like a bonsai.
Mm,
Bonsai is a very good example of that experience, that refinement. Even subjects like therapies that originally came from China, because they were brought to Japan by the Buddhist monks, everything changed. It had this very subtle, there's such a reverence for
mm.
the small flower, the water fountain, the water is dropping. So this is all part of the environment I found in Japan. But the thing is, once I left Japan, I went to Germany. I thought I couldn't, I couldn't carry on. I couldn't do the same thing I did in Japan, because only in that environment I could function. So I started studying all the therapies and immersed in the different things, but didn't do acupuncture or anything for 4 years.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
But on my way to Brazil, this we're going to bring back to what my subject today. I used to go to London. There was a bookstore called Foyles. I don't know if you heard of seeing a very traditional bookstore. And I used to go to the place where they have all the natural medicine, spirituality section. And I was there one day, I remember I was there looking at the book. All of a sudden, I heard a noise above me. I don't know, it's a funny noise. And it was a time for me to look and catch a book.
Oh, wow.
This book fell off the top shelf and I managed to catch it. It was about emotions and flower essences.
Wow.
In those days, flower essences was just the beginnings in the 80s. People didn't know much of that. I had never heard about flower essences. And that alone, the connection with emotions and emotional states. And I started reading that book, Lisa, reading. I realized how close the concept of flower essence is to acupuncture.
Mm.
So much so that I started calling liquid acupuncture.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And unbeknownst to me, that would play a very important part of what was going to happen to me when I finally went back to Brazil.
Oh, wow. You know what's interesting about the samurai for me is I would say so 2011 I had a health crisis. I actually found out I had parasites. I had 3 different ones that were making me very ill, and I had to go through a massive detox to eliminate those parasites, and this is like a 6-month process. I'm sure you know about this. It's a real intense process.
Okay.
And funny thing is, I have a deck, I still have it, a deck called the Dao Zen Oracle. And
Mm.
it's a deck of oracle cards, like tarot cards, but they're based on the Tao and the I Ching. And so every card has the I Ching on it, and it has, these Taoist concepts. And what was very interesting is there was a card in the deck with a samurai on it.
Oh,
I should find the picture. I'll get it up for everybody. But it has a samurai on it, and the card is discipline. And it
oh,
has the I Ching symbols for discipline. Because at the time I had an awakening of sorts where I realized I was not disciplined, and that even though I thought I was making good choices, I was actually making really terrible food choices. And so in this journey of purification, I was learning how to take care of myself through diet in a healthy way while I eliminated these parasites. And so that samurai card that said discipline was on my puja, my altar, for maybe 5 or 6 years. I kept it up, and I would look at that samurai every day, and I would practice embodying his energy and embodying the energy of discipline. And I would say, now I'm highly disciplined. And I do think it's part of that energy. So it's interesting you bring up the samurai and that energy, because it really is such a profound energy. And I even went and took Kung Fu for a while because I felt like it would help me understand those concepts. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just there's an amazing energy to the samurai. And I just always remember that discipline energy and what discipline's all about. So it's really cool what you're sharing. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, discipline and perseverance, very much Japanese way. You know, you can see, like I share with people, I went to this paper maker. I was amongst everybody, I was foreigner. I was the only one who dared to drive in Japan. Everybody would take a train or a bullet train, but I would study the map. I love maps. I would study the maps, get in the car and drive to the mountains and visit that potter or that calligrapher or somebody of the sort. And I went to this man, he is a paper maker, you know, one of the treasures of Japan, living treasures. So I went there and he was very welcoming at the door. So he took me to see his place, and there was this lady. She was doing some almost looked like a dance. She had this frame, a wooden frame, and she was deepening this frame like a vertical way, like forward. There was a whitish liquid. She would go forward, back, and sideways. It's like a dance, like that, rhythm, you know, rhythmically, and doing this. And I figured that's how she would make sure that the fibers would intertwine to create the paper. And after a while doing that dance, she would deposit that as a thick whitish substance on a wooden deck. And that was the paper. I said, fascinating. And then I asked the master, how long does one take to master this technique? He said 50 years.
Wow.
So to me, a Western 50 years is a lifetime, is eternity. But this shows a degree of commitment, because they have this thing about perfection. You know, if you cannot reach it, at least you're going to die trying. That's a very Japanese way. And the samurai, you know, the samurai time, samurai values, even to this day, play a very important part in Japanese society.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, I'm going to let you dig in. Like, you know, you have this great time with us, and what is your intention, and what are we going to be experiencing with you in these monthly features?
Well, my original idea, I like to share what I know. For many, many years, I have been thinking, well, people know what I know, but I come to know that I could share certain things, certain aspects that was part of my experience. So it's almost like a journey. I would like to invite people to journey with me. So I'll be covering aspects of energy healing, especially emotions, which is my thing, as you're going to see in a moment, how things led me to that, including my book. It's about emotions. And so I'm going to add a few things, but basically it's like energy medicine. It's like my journey through Tibetan, Japanese, and Chinese medicine. That's at least my purpose at the moment.
Well, I'm excited. You know, I think you know now, and for people who are listening, maybe you know or don't, but Tibetan medicine is near and dear to my heart. And I've, you know, been practicing Ayurveda and finishing a certification in Ayurveda medicine and being an Ayurveda practitioner. However, it's led me on this journey to Tibetan medicine, which is also a form of Ayurveda. And there's these incredible tantric I guess you could say they're books, but it's really tantric scriptures from Tibet about how to take care of your body. And so I'm really excited to learn from you because I think there's a lot that I'm going to get out of what you're saying, and for everybody also. And just a reminder, if you're on the live, you can absolutely ask questions. I'll be moderating those, but I'm going to let Cairo take it away and share some teachings and some stories, and then we'll loop back around here at the end. So go ahead, Cairo.
Thank you. Just a little bit about, before I start, I just, talk about Tibetan medicine. For many years, I thought the Chinese medicine was the most encompassing one because it talk about emotional states, mental states. But when I started being exposed to Tibetan medicine, I realized that Tibetan medicines go higher and not higher or forward. It means they incorporate compassion, which is huge. In so much so that, as you know, when they are about to make their concoctions, when they go out in the field to collect herbs, during the whole process of preparing, there's always a mantra, there's always a prayer with which they want to infuse that preparation so that whoever takes that medicine will take the mantra, the vibration as well. This is absolutely beautiful. Okay? But yes, my purpose today at the title will be emotions, acknowledge, feel, release, which it's a follow-up, it's a continuation what we just discussed at the moment when I was preparing to return to Brazil. So that's where we stop. So I arrived in Brazil, a different country to me, being 8 years abroad, everything was changed, including people thought I was a foreigner because I was speaking a very polite way in Portuguese, whereas I didn't know much about the slangs at the time. But it was a new beginning to me. And I ended up, so slowly before I got engaged into the school, acupuncture school, I opened my office, a small office, small clinic. And it was all there with all my Japanese needles, all my trays, everything there. And amazing as it sounds, Lisa, but there's nothing amazing about this thing. I think it was my first patient. I shared this before, but anyway, it has to do with what I'm going to be saying. This lady came to me, actually, she's from Canada. She was from Canada. And she came to me because she had this excruciating pain in her thigh that she couldn't get rid of. And she had done all kinds of things and the pain was always there. Then, well, let's go then. So I got my needles, Japanese needles, and he started applying needles here and there gently, But at some point, she started crying, like shaking, crying, and it started, increasing, with sobbing, and I was crying inside because, my goodness, I managed to hurt my first patient, not going too far away with this profession. So I quickly removed the needles and let her go. She went home and I was devastated. Well, what am I going to do? What kind of message is that? But the following morning, she was back in my office. Luckily, she wasn't crying anymore. Actually, she had a smile, big smile. And I asked, what happened to you? And she said, well, that very night, the night before, I had this dream. In my dream, I was being whipped constantly on that particular spot, my leg. It's a big ship, and I was being whipped constantly. And with that, there was this terrifying feeling, the hopelessness, anger, everything together I was experiencing as I was being whipped. And when I woke up, the pain was gone. No more pain, disappeared. When she shared that with me, I didn't know what to make of it. I had no idea because up to that point, I knew that acupuncture was very effective therapy to deal with physical and the energetic issues, but this new development was new to me. So that's the big impact. And I realized very quickly that the body can send messages and emotions are trapped energy inside, looking for recognition, looking for ways to express itself. And once it's done, once you, whether it's acupuncture, whatever that is, whatever that is, it fulfilled its purpose. It's released. It's something we're going to be talking about in a moment. But that, instead of seeing a TV with like a 13 inches, all of a sudden I was facing a 50-inch or huge screen ahead of me. So then I started working, but in a different way. Every time I come across somebody coming to me with a headache or whatever that was, I was looking for emotion behind. What sort of energy is behind this? And you start like pulling a thread until I found, that's where you are. So that's how I started doing it. And I started slowly, coincide with the time I started traveling Brazil and teaching seminars. People started inviting me. And then at some point, people say, is there anything written about what you're saying? So, well, most what I say are my notes here. You're welcome to take it. I don't have anything in it. So this will push me to write my first book, which happened many years later, about emotions and everything. But one thing that is very important, Lisa, and I wanted to share that nowadays, well, emotions are basically like energy. Yeah? It's how we express ourselves. It's how we express our humanness. We cannot conceive somebody without humans, without emotions. It would be a robot or something like that. But emotions should be like a wind that comes, shake the trees, and move away. Come, shake the trees and move away, or a river that is always flowing. The problem is when a particular emotion is always there, it's always here, or more than emotions, they become almost like a second skin or a diver's suit. They're so close to us that we cannot see it anymore. That's sometimes you need somebody to tell us because we cannot see. It's like a book that you're reading very close to your eyes. It's too close, you cannot see, you have to move it away a bit. Another way of seeing this is like two chess players. Because they're horizontally involved, engaged in that game, sometimes a bystander, just looking down, can see moves the two cannot. So sometimes you need to zoom out of reality to see what's happening. Nowadays, as you know, people talking a lot about emotions and movements, books, you name it, say you need to repress, suppress. There are good emotions, bad emotions. You should cultivate the good ones, suppress the bad ones. But I don't see it that way. Yeah? I see emotions, basically, they are messengers. We have what I call inner physician. Right? You have one, I have one, everybody has one. When he or she perceives that we could be doing better, we move away from our balance or harmony, he will let us know by sending a message, an email, a letter, a telephone call, whatever it is, but in order to call us attention. But sometimes it begins like a whisper, look at me, all right? And then because we don't listen, we carry on doing this call is going to be increasing until finally you have something right in front of you, look at me, that you cannot pretend it's not there. And the best way to convey this is through discomfort or pain. You cannot ignore pain, can you? Either you have it or you don't have it, right? So this is a form. So but the beauty of everything is that the telephone keeps ringing until you answer, right? Once you answer the phone, there's no reason for the telephone to keep ringing, right? So the message is sent. And the moment, like an example I gave, the moment to take some steps towards it, even if you don't know, most people, this is something I can share with you, most people that come to see me, they don't know the reason they came to see me are the reason why they're supposed to be there. They're sent there for a reason far, far behind, far hidden. They have no idea. They think it's just a headache. They think it's just, pain in the elbow, but there's something behind. that propel them to go there. And I learn when I learn to connect with the inner physician. Say, what is it that you're bringing to me? What is it that you're trying to convey, right? And I catch the inner physician. I know I'm going to share something with you that you probably won't say this. I catch them playing the trick. The louder, depending where talking about pain. It's another, we could discuss pain in another subject, another podcast. It's huge. But depending where the pain is, I kind of know what the message the inner physician wants to convey. For instance, if the message is really strong, somebody who hasn't, being called so many times not listening, there's gonna pain in the knee. That means a really severe call, because if something happens to your knee, you'll not be able to walk.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot function, right? If
Right.
somebody wants to catch your attention, goes for the knee. So every time somebody comes with knee problems, which is one of my specialties, my teacher passed it on to me, I know there's a very strong message. Other ones were sent before, but that's the moment. The knee is very interesting because it conveys what's going on above the knee, below the knee. Below the knee is my concept. It represents the earthbound issues. The tibia fibula is what the yin and yang, the connection we have with earth, right? Above the knee, you have the tibia, a single strong bone, means the higher self. This is your higher self. And the knees are a gate in between. Everything our experience on earth with the two bones, sending to the higher self, which is the tibia, and the tibia, with his wisdom, send messages to the two bones. So it sounds funny concept, but
that's amazing. So as a medical intuitive, when I see energy, I can tell you that all the years of seeing energy, the energy centers of the knee are some of the worst. Always full of energy, always stuck. The chakra that runs in that space is always blocked. So this is so fascinating to hear your take on it, because it really is a problem. I mean, I would say in the US, with the hundreds of people I've seen over the years, the knee is like one of the number one, like forget the major energy centers up the spine, like the knee is like a big problem. That's so interesting.
Huge. I could go on forever with the details. Actually, I can say I have a work that I've done, a presentation a long time ago, I call the divine hologram, showing different parts of the body, what they mean energetically, emotionally, and everything, which we could share at some other time. Okay, it's very beautiful. I like it. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
So back to our emotions. So there's no necessarily good or bad. It's just expressions. In fact, emotions are a good thing, because in like a nice dish, you need a little bit of spice here and there, right, to make it alive. You're a good chef, I'm sure you know that. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, that creates the whole thing. Like, say, a little bit of fear is wonderful because it prevents you from jumping off the bridge. Be careful. Right? A little bit of guilt helps you to make amendments. There's something that's like a stone in your shoe. I need to do something about this guilt. I'm feeling guilt. So a little bit of anger is a little spice. Oh, really? I'll show you what I can do, type of thing, to make you motivated to do that. So they all have their reason. They all have their energy. They are not here by chance or because, this energy is bad. It's not such a thing. But it's just to acknowledge them. They need acknowledgement. You need to honor them. Hopefully I'll have time. I'm going to show you an exercise, show everybody an exercise you can do with that by honoring and accepting. But the fascinating thing the most fascinating thing, and that I talk about this in my book, is the connection of each particular emotion to a particular area or organ in your body. Like, for instance, anger Anger is very much associated with the liver and gallbladder. Yeah? Wood element. It ties with the energy, like the energy, liver energy is very much, it makes chi rise. You know, the Chinese say the liver energy is going up. And sometimes when you say, I lost my head when you're angry, I lost my head, I lost my mind, right? You never hear somebody, I'm so angry, I lost my foot. No such thing. It's uprising, right? So if a liver has that already, when somebody's really in anger with, or something like that, this really go too forcefully, and the person can faint or can create what the Chinese call wind. You know, when you close the bonfire at night, you see there's a wind if you get too close. Similar to that, too much heat. But anger is not necessarily anger. The Chinese say anger could be what they call so resentment, frustration, pent-up grudges, animosity, something that was holding you back. So when you have this loophole, it goes up, you know, in an uncontrolled way. I had a story. There was in old China, there was this prince. He was very ill, and they had called for all the doctors to treat him, and he was ill. It was you know, there was no solution. It was very, very poor health. And finally, they decided to call this famous doctor from northern China. It's a very, very knowledge man. So he came and saw the prince, check him and did some diagnosis. And he started provoking the prince, poking him, you know, calling him names. You know, the prince was getting angry. That he ended up vomiting a blood clot. He was stuck. So he got healed. But unfortunately, the prince was so angry that the doctor died. He killed the doctor. So that's the story. Anyway, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's just part of the story. But he could realize that there was something stuck, you know, that he needed to bring it up. So that's why he provoked him so something could move. That's the story. The other one would be worrying. Worrying is very much about spleen and stomach. Worrying is like a stuck energy that's going nowhere, spinning, you know. Like you look at the body movement, body language of somebody worrying. It's like moving the hands like this at the stomach level, right? Mm-hmm. It's like worrying, overthinking, overusing intellect. It's like a spinning energy. And it can have an impact on your digestion. That's so much, I know this for a fact that all my patients that are intellectuals or like to read or something, they all have some stomach issues or digestive issues or anything of a kind. Okay? So there is a direct connection, worrying your digestion, because it mimics what is going on. Right? I want to tell a story before I forget about this. Again, two monks. They were walking, one senior and a young one. They're walking. They're going to a monastery. At some point, they saw this beautiful lady, dressed lady, Chinese lady with a long dress. So she couldn't move well, and there was this mud, she had rain, big chunk of mud, and she was trying to go over it, to jump, but she couldn't. The senior, the old master, the old monk, didn't think twice. Went there, carried her gently, and put her on the other side of the road. Done. The young monk was, well, my goodness, thinking, he knows you're not supposed, the master should know you're not supposed to look at ladies, let alone carry them or touch them. This is a no-no. So they carry on their journey to the monastery, and he was thinking, how could I have done that? He should have given an example. He couldn't have done that. So he got to the temple, the monastery, and then he couldn't stand anymore. And he said, why did you do that, master? You know we're not supposed to touch or look at it. My son, what happens is I carried the lady from one side to another, but it seems to be carrying her ever since.
I love that story. I know that story well, and I love it because we all do that.
Yes. So this kind of thinking about something that may not happen. So that's why the warnings are preoccupy, occupy in advance. Okay. The other one, it's like to share is grief, sadness. Because sadness dissolves the chi in the chest, and sinks the energy. Energy disappears in the chest, and the problem is because thymus gland is right here. So it has a tremendous impact on our immune system. It's very common when somebody is in grief for so long with the loss of a loved one, end up, catching disease, end up departing as well. So this is because grief is very much affects the lungs, very closely associated with that. The other one I would like to talk about is fear. This, everybody asks me about fear because it's very prevalent, very important emotion as everything. It's perhaps the most paralyzing emotions we have because it brings the energy down, hence the name. Anger goes up, fear goes down, hence the name of the book. It brings the energy down. And you know that somebody in sheer fear lose the control of their bladder, wet their pants. So there's no control anymore. And makes the chi descend, and you don't have any control. And then basically it affects in so many ways. And now I know to identify what kind of fear. If it's a fear that a person feels insecure or life-threatening fear, this is very much about the first chakra, Muladhara. This is like survival fear. This is to do with the survival fear, affects the first chakra, which in flower essence equivalent to rock rose. Rock rose is the essence that addresses this kind of fear, survival, terrifying fear. It's called rock rose. The second fear, the regular fear, that the fear of flying, fear of this or that, this is to do with the second chakra, Swadhisthana. It's more like emotional fear, the regular fear. This is mimulus. Mimulus is tiny little flower. Mimulus is a flower essence that addresses this kind of fear, mimulus. And the third chakra, feeling insecure or disempowered, has to do with the Manipura, which is the third chakra. You feel in relation to life or disempowered. This is larch. Larch is the best flower essence for this kind of fear, right? And then people ask, well, there's some variations to that, like for instance, phobias. All the phobias, fear of height, fear of enclosed, fear of any fear. Basically, phobias is fear of a fear. You cannot have a phobia of something never experienced before, right? Mm-hmm. So I have while a student in Japan, my teacher said, when you find yourself in a situation like, fear of, like experience of phobia or fear of, being in an elevator or something like that, pay attention how you're breathing. You're breathing shallow, you're breathing fast. And the best way to change that is change the pattern, breathing slowly and deep. Fine, beautiful, I had no experience with that. Many years later, I went to Cappadocia in Turkey, and I was traveling such a beautiful place. And the main attractive tourism attraction, is the underground cities, where the Christians dug the hole, almost like ants' nest, to run away from the Ottomans. So basically, we have this tube, this corridor, long corridor, and a gallery, long corridor and a gallery. But the problem is so narrow, you cannot allow a group of people going or coming back. You cannot have two movements, going, come back. I was there, it was beautiful, he was explaining everything. Then a thought came to mind. What if I want to go outside? I cannot, because I need to wait for people to come down. And then I started having this cold sweat, as if I need to leave here now. I cannot stay here. It's going to be tragic. But then at this moment, the teaching of this teacher in Japan, this word came to me. And I was breathing shallow and breathing fast. And I started breathing slowly and deeply, and it went away. Totally disappeared, totally vanished. I even carried on, volunteered to go even deeper. So this is for everybody who's listening to me at this moment. If you forgot everything I've said so far, please remember this. Every time you find yourself in a very difficult situation that involves phobia, wherever that is, height, enclosure, everything, you're breathing shallow and fast. And the best way to change this is breathing deeply and slowly. That is the best antidote. Okay. Now, one thing I need to share, what to do about this. I could spend the whole afternoon talking about this, but I see the time, so I need to share what to do. I'm going to give you tools. Number one, if you're dealing with a particular emotion that you find out, I'm always angry, I'm always sad, I'm always feeling guilty, I'm always worrying too much. We call mother syndrome, worrying. Best thing is to pull up a chair and invite this emotion to sit with you, like in front of you, and ask, what is your purpose in my life? What can I do for you? What can I do? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Yeah. And then it's an interesting thing is because thoughts will come to your mind and you're not thinking about this because you're listening, you're acknowledging the emotion, you're honoring it. And that alone makes it vanish. You're listening, you're giving it voice, you're giving it a face, you can give it a name. Now, if it's too many, you call a board meeting. Imagine like a round, feng shui friendly oval table with all kinds of emotion and issues, give them name, faces, and address each one. What can I do for you today? What can I help you? What is your purpose in your mind? I used to have a radio station in my mind as I was driving to my office. I remember, so imagine you say, oh, today we are in a radio station so-and-so, and now we have a special guest, is Mr. Liver. So Mr. Liver, you're welcome to address we are here to listen to what you have to say. So I used to carry on with all the organs. So
oh my gosh, that's so great. I love that.
And let them speak. And by the time I arrived in my office, I could listen to, everybody was there.
That's so amazing. Oh my God, what a great practice. It's awesome.
Yes. There's another one that I like very much, the emotions, is to recycle it because you don't want it to pile up to the point that you cannot handle that anymore. So I like to recycle emotions. What you do is, when acknowledge, the first thing is acknowledge. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm really upset. Yes, I'm terrified. It's the number one thing. Acknowledge that. But then you add something positive in the same sentence. Yes, I know I'm upset, but I love myself, or I care about myself. I find myself very handsome. Whatever that is. Something not for the conscious mind, the things are just words, but a subconscious mind that stores everything as true. So on one hand, you say, I know I'm upset, but I love myself. So keep doing that. Multiples of 3 because it's lots of energy that. So this is a wonderful therapy. It prevents this from piling up. You work with the emotion, with the energy as it comes. Yeah? So you dissolve that and you just carry on. So basically, I have so many other things to talk about. Is there anything particular that you, Lisa, would you like, or anybody like me to address at the moment?
Oh my gosh, there is so much to talk about. This is why you have a monthly feature, because you can't do it in 1 hour. Let me see. Does anybody have questions? I know there's a slight delay on YouTube after we go live, so we'll give it a minute and see if anyone has any questions. I would love to go back to the knee and have you just share, is there a tool? You know, there's so many people with knee problems. There's so many people with knee energy blocks. Is there something simple that you can recommend to everyone out there to start working on the energy in your knee?
Well, I think the best thing you can do for the knee, the very beginning, is to embrace it with your hands. It's like basically what you do is what the muscles, the thigh muscles do. They embrace, they hold the knee together like this. If the muscles, the thigh muscles are strong and steady, your knee will be steady and strong. If the muscles are not strong, they'll be wobbly. And this also has an energetic aspect of what I don't have anything holding me. You know, I'm wobbling. I have no direction. So I think the first thing you can do is to hold your knee with both hands, regardless, could be like this or like this. Hold it. Hold it for a few minutes. Envelop your knee as much as possible. And I promise you, in a few minutes, you're going to hear something from the person. They normally say, well, this has nothing to do with what you're saying, but this thought came to me and I felt like sharing it with you. And that brings back, in the end, that's why the person came to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the beginning of holding the knee, just holding the knee together. The other one that I find that it works beautifully, forget about the knee. This is called mirroring. This is very typical of acupuncture. Say if you're working with the right knee needs attention. Forget about the knee, goes to his partner on the second floor, go to the left elbow.
Okay.
And look for the elbow and see if you can find tender spots on your elbow. So if you're treating the right knee, go for the left elbow. If you're treating the left knee, go to the right elbow. Okay? And look for tender spots all over. Mark with your pen. I have other ways of doing, but this is mark with the pen where you found tender spots. And you're going to get like a grain of beans or rice or lentil, something protruding hard. You're going to place so that you're going to put this grain and tape it with a Band-Aid or anything there. This is basically a cry for help, but it's let me give you the idea is that sometimes in acupuncture, this is the experience brought this to me, where the pain, where you're perceiving the pain and feeling pain is not where the blockage is. So if you have a pain in your knee, it doesn't mean the blockage is necessarily there. Could be, but most of the time, no. So like a ripple of energy, like say if you drop a pebble in a very peaceful lake, as the ripple move away from the stone, the pebble, they get longer and bigger, aren't they? Expanding. So if you go to the place where it's connected to the original area, through the experience you get to know, by treating here, you send a very powerful wave of energy to the area where the problem is. And it's very effective. So just get hold of something and tape it, like a beans or rice or a lentil, any grain, and just keep doing that. You'll see what's going to happen.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I'm going to try that. I'm going to hug my knee today
Yes.
and see how it feels. That's so amazing. I don't see any questions from the audience, but we have a couple minutes left. Do you want to leave us with some parting words?
Yes. One thing that I always say, and I believe, is that the true healing is self-healing. There is nothing I can do for you that your body cannot do better. My role here is just to open the ways, like acupuncture does, to clear the path so that your body does what it's supposed to do wonders. And I had a very a glimpse of experience of what I'm saying. Not long ago, I went to China to visit a Qigong master. This was about 4 years ago, Master Jiang. He passed away, but he's still with me. in spirit. I feel his presence. So I went to see him, and we have a very interesting connection, even though I don't speak Chinese, but I can read the characters somewhat. So we had a very good connection, so much so they said, come back to see me in 3 months. So in 3 months, I went to China twice to see him. And what he told me, what he left me is that basically for healing, tap into the self-healing, you need 2 elements. One, if your blood is clean and if your energy is flowing, your body can do wonders. So basically, our role here as a therapist and an empath or whatever to do is make sure that that happens with whatever means we have. It doesn't mean that because I'm acupuncture, I can only do acupuncture. No, not at all. I can have like somebody smiling at me and having this tremendous impact in my body. I can have like a lady who called me up today and say, I'm praying for you. I'm giving you a prayer. So this hit me like a wonderful, energy, wave of energy. So you can do that by opening ways, opening channels, make sure that things flow. Like the mother, when the child gets injured, the mother just, oh, this will go away, this will go away. This is typical energy work. So powerful that you cannot quantify. There's no acupuncture in the world that you can do that. So basically, the idea is that you can do everything. It's my role here is to facilitate that process and everybody else. Okay, so that's my feeling.
I love it. Cairo, thank you so much. I mean, this is really such important information. It's in the world that we are stepping into in the new earth and the new reality, medicine is holistic. It's not just looking at the body, but looking at the energy and the emotions. And so, this monthly feature with you and these conversations with you are just so important. And I hope everyone listening understands that, because it's going to teach us how to connect with our bodies, how to heal ourselves, and how to, I read a post from Dr. Ben Lynch the other day, and it said, it's not about treating a virus, it's about the health and the environment of the host. And I really think that that's so much, and I get goosebumps as I say that, because what you're teaching is how to, heal, maintain, and nourish the health of the host, which is each and every one of us. So thank you so much. Just really beautiful, beautiful stuff. I just love it.
Much for giving me this channel to be able to share that with everyone.
It's
I
such
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's such a gift, and you're such a gift. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's been watching. We have a few days left of the summit. We'll be back in 3 hours with our evening summit program. And thank you so much, Cairo. And if you're listening on the replay, you can absolutely join us at miwi.com, Buddhist Biohacker Forum. Thank you so much, Cairo. So much love to everyone. Mwah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.